Open up your Bible to Proverbs. We're going to be spending the entire time this evening there. Proverbs is one of my favorite. It's my favorite book. It's my favorite book in the Bible, and the Bible being my favorite book of all books, it's my favorite book. There's so much wisdom there, and it's so practical. You know, you can read something like Numbers, and you learn genealogy and stuff, but that's not particularly practical. You can learn. You can read through the gospel accounts, and you learn a lot about Jesus, very important, but it's not always very practical. But Proverbs, the practicality smacks you in the face. It's practically every verse. So we're going to be spending most of the time there. This is a continuation of a sermon that I did a while back, and I got so much out of it when I heard someone else deliver this sermon that I adapted it, made it my own, I stole it, and then I wanted to share a little bit more wisdom from Proverbs to you. So we're looking at this evening 10 more reasons that people might not like you. 10 more reasons why people might not like you. And we're talking about you, the individual, not the person that you're sitting next to. So feel free to elbow the person you're sitting next to if something applies to them, but again, beware, you might get an elbow in return. So as long as you're open to the give and the take, that's fine. But make sure that you're first applying these things to yourself, okay? Make sure you're first applying these things to yourself. Otherwise, this first reason why people might not like you might apply to you. That's not right. We'll do without PowerPoint tonight. The first one is from Proverbs chapter 4. Proverbs chapter 4, verses 23 through 37. We're not going to read the whole passage. I'll just read a little bit of it. But Proverbs chapter 4, starting at verse 23. As we read this passage, see if you can notice a pattern. See if there's anything interesting going on. And let's go and get started. Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it spring the issues of life. Put away from you a deceitful mouth, and put perverse lips far from you. Let your eyes look straight ahead, and your eyelids look right before you. Ponder the path of your feet, and let all your ways be established. Do not turn to the right or to the left. Remove your feet from evil. I don't know if I gave it away or not, but it doesn't say ponder the path of your neighbor's feet. Ponder the path of your husband's feet. Ponder the path of your wife's feet. Ponder the paths of anybody else but your own. You know, it is important to look out for other people, but if you're in the pit with someone, how much help can you be pulling them out? We have to primarily, as they say on an airplane, put your mask on first, and then you can help someone else put their mask on. Are you keenly aware of others' faults, but blind to your own? If you are, this might be a reason why people don't like you. Improve yourself first. The focus in Proverbs is on self. Self-control is what the Bible teaches, not other control. God could control us, but he doesn't. He teaches us to control our own selves. This reminds me of a family, and if you have kids, every family that has kids, one family was sitting down to eat dinner, and they were praying, and one kid wasn't praying. He was looking all around. You know how kids do. You can't keep them to pay attention for very long. So one kid, instead of praying, they were looking all around. And then the sibling sees this and says, Dad, so-and-so's not praying. Without realizing that, whatever, you say about me bounces off me and sticks to you, that sort of thing. The police officer was guilty himself. And this is a very good reason why people might not like you. It's hard to correct someone when you're guilty of the very same thing. People don't generally take you very seriously if you're smoking and you say, you really shouldn't smoke. Or, you really should be more religious and you're not religious. Or you really should stop whatever and you're doing that. You have to put your own mask on first. Personal responsibility is an important concept in Scripture, and we need to remember that. If we're keenly aware of other people's faults, but blind to our own, that can be very annoying to people. Faults are kind of like eyebrows. Everybody's got them, or most people have them. And it's easy to spot on other people. But unless you try, it's hard to see your own eyebrows, unless you have big ones like this. But even that, you can't see most of them, right? Faults are kind of like eyebrows. It's very easy to see on other people and point out, but it's very difficult to see for yourself. So it's wise to ask others for help. It is wise to do that. We don't have to do everything on our own. It's wise to surround yourself with people who care about you and to ask them to lovingly correct you when you need it. But it's another thing to dole out unasked for gems of advice. It's a different thing entirely. We need to be people who regularly and honestly examine ourselves to see if we're walking in the light, if we're doing the things that we ought to be doing. But if we're experts in finding fault in others, it may be a reason that people don't like us. Number 2, Proverbs chapter 30, verse 15. Proverbs chapter 30 and verse 15. Are you a mooch? Are you a mooch? Jeanette and I, when we were first married, we had a cat. We named him the Mooch. Because you know how cats are. They're mooches. But this is an interesting passage. It says, the leech has 2 daughters, give and give. And the implication is that the leech is saying that himself, give to me. Not this is a generous leech, like, I just want to give you all of these things. Leeches don't really have anything to give. So the leech, his daughters say, give me. It's okay to need other people. It's okay to ask others when we need help. And we dare not be so arrogant to think that we never need anyone's help for anything. We're not talking about the need that we have for others. So with that in mind, we need to understand that it's one thing to be unable to reciprocate in kind. So if someone is always taking you out to lunch, like when I first started coming here, people would regularly take me out to lunch, knowing that as a poor college student, I didn't have the means to pay them back. They didn't expect that, but maybe they did expect a thank you. Just a little bit of gratitude. A leech, if you go swimming in a murky pond or murky river, not here in Florida, we have alligators, but somewhere else. If you go into the jungle or wherever, and you go swimming in some pond, some body of water, you might come out with a little hitchhiker, a little sluggy thing with teeth, and he'll bite you and suck out all your blood. And he will happily just get all full and plump and suck as much blood as he possibly can, and he will never stop and say thank you. He will never say thank you. He can't. It's just not within his capability. And if you give him the opportunity, he'll do it again and again and again until either you or he dies. We are called to be better than leeches, I think, as Christians. We are called to be better than leeches. It's okay if we can't respond in kind, but at least we can show some appreciation, gratitude. If we take the kids to Chick-fil-A or somewhere fun, it's a good teaching moment to say, hey, tell mommy thank you. She didn't have to do this, but she wanted to. And it's good to teach ourselves to be grateful when someone goes out of their way to do something that they really didn't have to do, but they wanted to do in order to serve you, to help you. If you're always borrowing and never lending or never paying back, this might be a reason that people don't like you. People don't like mooches. Number 3, are you a liar? Are you a liar? Proverbs chapter 19 and verse 5. And there's a number of proverbs along the same vein. A false witness will not go unpunished, and he who speaks lies will not escape. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this one, but this will definitely cause people to not like you. As a Christian, I spend a lot of my time around people who are honest. And it's nice to be able to just turn off the part of my brain, at least temporarily, that even considers that someone isn't just telling me the truth. It's strange for me to recall that there are people out there who will look me in the face and deliberately deceive me to get some advantage out of me. And it's hard to want to spend time with people like that, where even if they tell the truth most of the time, it's hard to spend time with people who you always have to doubt, you always have to double check, you always have to verify the things that they're saying. And not just important things, it's fine to verify important things. But if someone just says, yeah, I was here, I was there, I was doing this, I was doing that, it's exhausting to be around someone that you just can't trust. And I think most of us don't have a problem with that. But do we sometimes make promises that we have no intention of keeping? Someone invites you over to their house, and you say, oh, next time, I'll invite you over to my house. Or someone asks for help, and you say, yeah, I'll be there. And you don't really intend on being there, or I'll see if I can make it. and you really know, like, that's a polite no. Do we have a problem with that? It's okay to not make promises. It's better to be people who rarely make promises but always keep them than people who frequently make promises and rarely keep them. There are eternal consequences, spiritual consequences, certainly for lying, but apart from that, there are immediate relational consequences because people can't trust liars. I'm not going to ask for names, or I'm not going to ask for anybody to raise their hand, but we all know people that we just can't count on to be there even when they say they're going to be there. And that is not fun to need to rely on those people. It's not fun. And people might not like you if this sounds anything like you. Reason number 4, do you admit it when you're wrong? Do you admit it when you're wrong? If you don't, this might be a reason that people do not like you. Proverbs chapter 14 and verse 16. A wise man fears and departs from evil, but a fool rages and is self-confident. So we're talking about someone who is perhaps corrected and says, okay, hey, I appreciate the advice. I was wrong and I'm going to change my course. But a fool says, how dare you correct me? I'm going to even more do the stupid thing that I was doing and be even more confident in what he or she was doing. When someone is corrected and they change, it brings a smile to my face. I see a few people smiling. It's perhaps not as common as it ought to be, but it's a sight to behold. It's a beautiful thing when someone changes when they're corrected. But what typically happens is often people will, when corrected, they'll, instead of backing down, they'll double down on the silly thing that they said or the silly position that they have, and they'll get louder and more confident and more belligerent about their wrong position. And the sad part is that people, if this is your attitude, people will eventually stop correcting you because you'll either ostracize people who care enough about you to correct you, or they will agree with you. You surrounded yourself with other fools who will agree with you and encourage the foolish thing that you're doing, so you will be left alone to drift further and further away from wisdom. So if this is you, if you are someone who has a hard time admitting when you're wrong, it's not going to end well for you, and this very well may be a reason that people don't like you. Say this to yourself right now, just in your own head. I am wrong. Just think that in your mind and see what kind of feelings that brings out. If it makes you uncomfortable a little bit, just thinking that, this might apply to you. When was the last time your spouse heard you say, I am wrong, or you were right? Or when was the last time your kids heard you say that, or your coworkers, or your friends? When was the last time anybody heard you say those words? If you're struggling to remember, this might be a reason that people don't like you. They know you've been wrong, whether you admit it or not. You're not doing yourself any favors. It's just a matter of whether or not you realize or you recognize that they know this or not. Number 5, are you pessimistic? This is a great one. Are you pessimistic? Proverbs chapter 15:15. Proverbs 15:15. All the days of the afflicted are evil, but he who is of a merry heart has a continual feast. Very rare is the person in the ancient Near East who literally had a continual feast every day. More common was people really had no idea where their food was going to come from day by day, whether or not they were going to have food. But if you're an optimistic person, it doesn't really matter if you know where your food is going to come from, whether this or that is going to happen. It's fine. I'm sure it'll work out one way or the other. But if you have a table spread full of delicious food and you're a pessimistic person, you can find something to be grouchy about. When you walk into a room, do people brighten up? Oh, Trevor. Oh, it's Mylon. Come on in. We're talking about this. Came in. All right. Do people brighten up, or do people tighten up? And they say, I'll talk about it later. And then, like, whoever comes out, I'll tell you later. Well, and then the conversation kind of just stops while they wait for you to leave, because they don't want to hear you grousing and grouching and shooting down the ideas. Or people don't like that. If this sounds anything like you, this might be a reason that people don't like you. When someone tells you an idea, are you immediately someone who tries to poke holes in the idea? Like if they're asking, hey, poke holes in my idea, by all means, poke holes in the idea. But if they say, hey, I've got this great idea, and someone tells you about it, and you say, oh, well, this and that, and did you think about this? And pretty soon, people are going to say, I'm not going to tell her, I'm not going to tell him about my ideas, because I know what to expect. They're going to shoot it down, I'll be discouraged, and I'm not even going to try, right? If this sounds anything like you, this is a reason that people don't like you. Or are you the kind of person who says, even if it's an imperfect idea, like Sam might be coming up with some idea, some crazy thing, and I'm going to do this and this and this and this, and then it might be a silly idea. But do you focus on things that could go right? Do you focus on the positives? It's a great idea, buddy. We can do this, and maybe we can just tweak it this way, right? Do you focus on the things that could go wrong, or do you focus on the things that can go right? Very rare is the idea that everything is wrong about it. Very, very rare. Is your glass always half empty, or are you able to see the good even in spite of a bad situation? Are you able to see good even in a good situation? The expert pessimist is able to be blind to the good even in an excellent situation. Is that you? We just inherited $1 million. Well, we'll just have to pay more taxes. We got an all-expenses-paid trip to Hawaii or wherever you want to go. Well, it's a long plane ride. They might not have the food that I like. We made it to heaven. We're sitting before the very throne of God. It's beautiful. It's so bright, it hurts my eyes. There are people like that, and I want to challenge you, if this sounds anything like you, to discipline yourself, as Jeff talked about this morning. Discipline yourself. The next time you encounter a situation, and your brain automatically goes to that place, the dark place, tell yourself, stop. I'm not going to think about the bad. Sure, there's bad, and there's a time and a place to think about the bad things, but I'm going to see if I can find the minuscule atom of goodness in this situation, whatever it is. And as your brain stops going down the rut of finding the bad thing and slowly starts building the rut of looking at the positive, it will get easier, and it will get easier, and the habits will form, and the neurons will connect, where it's easier to see the positive and harder to complain about the negative. If you're a Christian and you are more Eeyore than Winnie the Pooh, I've got good news. You don't have to be that way. You don't have to be that way. It's a bad habit, and it's one that you can break. You might have to try hard, but it is one that you can break. If you choose to remain constantly forlorn and looking at everything first to see the bad, it very well may be a reason that people don't like you. Number 6, are you self-centered? And along with that, basically synonymous with this, do you desire to be famous? What is fame but the desire or the recognition of many people? You want more people's to know you, to think about you. Are you self-centered, or do you desire to be famous? Proverbs chapter 25 and verse 27. This is an interesting one. It is not good to eat much honey, so to seek one's own glory is not glory. The thought goes, we've got something good, honey, okay, is the illustration the Proverbs try to use. If this is good, then more of this is better, right? Makes sense. It's a simple thought, but it's mistaken. I don't have a lot of experience with honey, but I do have an interesting story about garlic. When Jeanette and I were first married, we were making a beef stew in a crock pot. And I don't recall if we were following a recipe or not. Ask Jeanette for all the details. She'll remember better than I will. It called for like so many cloves of garlic or so many heads of garlic. Maybe we got that mixed up. I don't know. It might have been something like that. But I basically said, you can never have too much garlic. And Jeanette said, I don't know if that's the case. But I said, no. I'm pretty sure you can never have too much garlic. And it's going to be on my tombstone. You can never have, in all caps, you can never have too much garlic. So I plopped in all the garlic. And this was Sunday morning before we headed to worship, and we planned on afterward to come home, and the house is going to, in the crock pot, the house is going to smell like this wonderful stew, and we'll eat, and we'll feast, and be merry. And so we come home, and the house smelled like a tire fire. And it tasted about the same. You can have too much garlic. You can have too much honey. You can have too much of a good thing. Too much of a good thing can make you literally sick. So what about glory? Seeking one's glory is not glory. What about glory? Desiring a good reputation. This is a good thing. That's fine. Being known for being good at a thing. Nothing wrong with that. Myling, he's a great engineer. David, he's a great runner. A lot of things that we can say, a lot of people here, you're good at that. But that's not why these people pursue these things. I'm going to do this so people recognize me. That's not a good thing. That is not a good thing. When you take it too far, it becomes negative. If what you're seeking is the uplifting of your own name, for people to know you and to be impressed by you, then this is not good. Glorying in God, that is good. Honoring others who deserve it is a good thing. Honor for those for whom honor is due. That's a great thing. But it's never good to glory in yourself. I was spending time with some friends that I don't often spend time with a while back, and there was one person in particular who always talked about their own accomplishments. I traveled here, and I did this, and I did that, and it very quickly became very old. And the next time, I'm not going to ask them about anything like that, because realize it or not, they were being self-centered. They were seeking their little corner of fame. You don't have to be in Hollywood to be famous. You don't have to be a movie star to be famous. But even a small amount of fame can be dangerous. If you've ever seen someone who was famous as a child or wasn't famous as a child and then later became famous, and you compare their life as a child compared to their life as an adult, it's like they're not even the same person. And the very few people whose fame doesn't get to their head, they generally fall out of fame. They fall out of the public eye. Fame will mess a person up. The desire to be known by other people will mess us up. It's not a good thing to have happen to us. If you are self-centered and you talk about yourself and boast about yourself or even desire to do that, if fame is a goal of yours, it may be a reason that people don't like you. This is exactly what the people who are building the Tower of Babel said. Let us make a name for ourselves. And God says, excuse me, I don't think so. Number 7, are you overly sensitive? Are you overly sensitive? Proverbs chapter 12 in verse 16. A fool's wrath is known at once, but a prudent man covers shame. How do you react when someone slights you or when you think someone slights you? So-and-so didn't say hi to me at church. I'm mad at them. Maybe they were having a bad day. Maybe they didn't see you. Maybe they had a lot on their mind. When someone inconveniences you, so-and-so was in front of me at the red light, and they didn't look at the green light when it turned immediately, and I honked my horn at them in anger. It's one thing to give a polite toot, hey, ooh, ooh, But if you're mad and you honk your horn at someone because you're mad at them, that's a very different thing. That's revealing something very different about your heart. What do you do when you feel like you're treated unfairly? How do you react? Imagine this. Imagine you're tired. It's been a long day at work or whatever it is that you do, and you're driving home and you're tired. And a police officer, you see the lights in the rearview mirror and they pull you over. You're pretty sure you weren't speeding, you weren't breaking any laws. What is your reaction? There are some people who will get very upset at this. They will get upset, and they will yell and bark, and they'll say, I'm going to put you in your place, and what's your name, and give me your badge number, and you can't do this, and this is unfair, and how dare you, whatever, and this and that. And maybe it is a bad police officer. Maybe they are pulling you over unfairly. But if we're Christians, that means we ought to act like Christ. Was Christ ever accused unfairly? Was he ever arrested while being innocent? Was he ever mocked and beaten and hit and mistreated? Well, yes. As a matter of fact, he was. And did he complain? No, he did not. He submitted to the authority even if it was corrupt, even though he was innocent. If we suffer as Christians, that's a fine thing. We shouldn't seek it out, But if we happen to suffer for Christ, let us suffer for Christ. If you are overly sensitive, this very well may be a reason that people don't like you. A big chunk of Proverbs is basically saying, don't open your mouth nearly as much as you want to. If you want to give someone a piece of your mind sometime, if there's some cause, some political thing that really irks you, if someone can be on either side of that cause and make it to heaven, might as well keep it to yourself. There were apostles who Jesus picked who were on very different sides of the political equation. Apart from Christ, one apostle very well might have murdered another apostle if he had the opportunity. But that is not what Jesus asked us to do. If it's something that the Bible talks about, certainly. We talk about it, and we need to be on the same page. We can't sacrifice truth. But if there are things that are getting us angry, that in the grand scheme of things doesn't matter, if it doesn't have eternal consequences, we might just be overly sensitive. Even if it is unjust. If someone can make it to heaven while being mistreated, a lot of our brothers and sisters who are going to be in heaven have had that happen to them, and the commander, the captain of our salvation, Jesus himself, had that happen to him as well. And if we make divisions amongst brethren, if we make divisions amongst people that we're trying to evangelize by whatever pet thing that gets our goat, that might cost us our soul. That might cost someone else their soul. I can't talk to him because he's always all going on about this thing that I don't like. You don't want to burn bridges evangelistically by going on and on about things that you're sensitive to that other people might not be. Unless, of course, it's something that the Bible says that we have to take a stand on. A fool gets angry quickly, and everybody knows about it. Everybody knows what a fool's grumpy about. If you're someone who gets upset quickly, if you're overly sensitive, it very well may be a reason that people do not like you. Number 8, this is an interesting one. Are you codependent? Are you codependent? This is not a word the Bible uses. It's a relatively modern definition of the word. The word wasn't coined until fairly recently, but the concept is as old as people. Proverbs chapter 25 and verses 16 and 17. Have you found honey? Eat only as much as you need, lest you be filled with it and vomit. Seldom set foot in your neighbor's house, lest he become weary of you and hate you. So codependent, this is a phrase that many of us might not know, but basically codependence is indicative of a dysfunctional relationship, either intrapersonal or interpersonal, with yourself or with other people. A relationship is out of balance and harmful. The Proverbs writer illustrates it as eating too much honey and vomiting, or overstaying your welcome in someone else's house. Visitors and honey, these are great things. In balance. A codependent person might either be giving themselves too much or too little, or letting others take too much from them. Some signs of codependency, essentially it's someone who has poor boundaries. Some signs of codependency are the inability to say no at work or in relationships. If I say no, they might not like me. Taking responsibility for someone else's actions. It's a good thing to take responsibility for your own actions. It's a very bad thing to take responsibility for anyone else's actions, unless they're your children or whatever. But that's not what we're talking about. Worrying, and if they're your adult children, you better not take responsibility for their actions. If they're like 2 or 3, you can. That's fine. Worrying or carrying the burden for others' problems. Covering up to protect others from reaping the consequences of their poor choices. Doing more than is required at your job or at home to earn approval or feel accepted. It's fine to go above and beyond. Jesus talks about going the extra mile, right? That's fine, to do more than what is expected of you. But if you're doing it so that you can get approval, then that might be a sign that things are out of balance. Feeling obligated to do what others expect without consulting your own needs. Killing yourself to take care of someone else, so to speak. Being suspicious of receiving love, not feeling worthy of being loved. trying to solve someone else's problems for them, or trying to change someone else. Neglecting our own needs in the process of caring for someone who doesn't want to care for themselves. It's one thing taking care of someone who cannot take care of themselves. That's a noble thing. This is what Jesus does for us. This is what God does for us. When we're unable to do for ourselves, the good thing is to take care of someone. And there's some exceptions, but if someone can take care of themselves but doesn't, it's not a good thing. Enabling someone to take our time or our resources without our consent. If any of this sounds anything like you or someone you know, we don't have time to get into it at length tonight, but please ask one of us. I can give you some resources. I would encourage you to talk to someone about this. This is not a way that Christians ought to live. This is unhealthy physically for you as well as spiritually. This can lead to many bad things. The root of all these things, though, wanting to protect someone, wanting to serve others, that is a good thing. But when something becomes codependent, it becomes perverted and turned into something that it ought not be. In codependency, it's unhealthy for everyone involved. If you're codependent, it may be a reason that people don't like you. This is a much larger issue, again, that we have time to deal with today, but I want to encourage you, if you know anybody like this, to seek help with that. Number 9, are you jealous? Are you jealous? Proverbs chapter 27 and verse 4. Wrath is cruel and anger a torrent, but who is able to stand before jealousy? Jealousy, of course, being an emotion, is not always sinful. But like all emotions, the motivation behind it is the determining factor. So anger is not always bad. Anger is sometimes great. But anger inappropriately is bad. So is the case with jealousy. So if you steal my wallet, I can become jealous for my wallet because that's mine. You can't take that. You might misuse my credit cards and my money and the various things in my wallet. So I can be jealous for that, or in other words, protective and concerned about. That's what jealousy means. But what we're talking about here is inappropriate jealousy, when someone is protective of or suspicious about something that is not actually theirs. This often springs out of trust or control issues, and it can be related to codependence. This is another thing related to that. If someone defines themselves in terms of another person, it's like, without so-and-so, what even am I? That kind of idea. If I can't take care of so-and-so, if I'm not a mom, what even am I? If I'm not a dad, if I'm not working this job, what am I? Suicide goes up when people retire. There's a feeling of, if I'm not whatever I was doing at work, what am I? There's a feeling of floating in the ether and aimlessness. Or when children leave the house, there's depression a lot of times. So that's another sign of codependence. But if someone isn't around and you just don't know what to do with yourselves, this is a bad thing. But if I'm jealous of a friend, say my best friend, and they are instead spending time with someone else, I get jealous. Oh, that's my best friend. You can't spend time with my best friend. They might become your best friend, and then I'll be sad. And I don't have a claim to their time. I don't have a claim to their attention. That's me demanding something that I don't have a right to. That's bad jealousy. Who is able to stand before that? That if that's the kind of feelings that I have, that would indicate a rottenness in my relationship, a rottenness within myself, that I don't trust them, or maybe I'm going to be replaced as their friend, or I want to inappropriately control them. This is my friend. Like the Gollum from Lord of the Rings, precious, this is mine. And if anybody else touches them, it's like, that kind of thing. That's not good. If you're a jealous friend, your friends might tolerate it, but they will not appreciate it the way that you appreciate it. Usually relationships cannot last if this is at all a central feature of it. If you're jealous, it may be a reason that people don't like you. And finally tonight, are you bad at arguing? Are you bad at arguing? Proverbs chapter 15 and verse 1. Soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Arguing and conflict get a bad rap because often the goal is to hurt the other person. Like when siblings argue, no, you're stupid. No, you're stupid. No, you smell worse. No, you smell worse. Like that's arguing, I guess. But the goal is to hurt the other person, right? It's not They're not trying to convince the other person, oh yeah, maybe I am the stupid, smelly one, right? That's not really the goal. The goal isn't to win someone else to your side or to be convinced that maybe you're the wrong one and to be won over to the other side. Conflict and argument can be a really, really good thing. And if we're good at arguing, you see it not as a chance to hurt someone else, but to win someone to your side or to be convinced that you are wrong and then to become right. This can be a really, really good thing. The assumption in this verse, a lot of times, the assumption about this verse is that it has to do with raising someone's voice. So a lot of people will say, like, oh yeah, Proverbs 15:1 says, yeah, don't yell. And that's included, but that's not really it. I think we're missing it if that's all we think about this. Some families are loud and yell just for the fun of it. You go in, like, it's too loud, right? Some families are loud just for the fun of it. So for those kinds of people, that's not a harsh word. Okay, it's not about volume. But other families, if the volume is usually here, and you go up just imperceptibly, a half of a decibel, they will notice it, and they will fold like a cheap card table. So for some people, raising your voice, even if you're very nice about it, is too much, and that is harsh. That is a harsh word. And then someone else can say, well, I wasn't yelling, and they will say, you were yelling. You weren't whispering, you were yelling. For others, a harsh word is an unfair comparison. This other person's husband does X, Y, and Z. You might not be yelling that, but comparing your spouse to someone else's spouse, well, so-and-so's wife always does. An unfair comparison can be a harsh word. Or, for other people, biting sarcasm. Oh, wow, thanks for making 2 pounds of meatloaf. It's my favorite meal. Or exaggeration. You never do this, or you always do this. Rare is that the case that people are that consistent where they always or never do something. Or being a logic lawyer in an argument. Stop being so emotional. If you would just think logically, you'd see it the way that I see it. Nobody is 100% logical. That's an emotional argument right there. Or any number of other things can be harsh. And it's our job to know what harsh is to the other people, to the other person that we're talking to, and avoid that if we possibly can. Think about the past few conflicts that you've had where you maybe were a tad more harsh than you needed to be. And think about your action, and then think about if instead of saying whatever you said or doing whatever you did, if you reacted this way. You might be right. Would you mind if I just thought about that for a little bit and I get back to you? I appreciate your feedback. Like, not sarcastically, guys. Thanks. No, I really appreciate that. I'll think about it. Wouldn't that just diffuse the situation entirely? And the other person might be coming at you like a pit bull, and you say thanks, and they're like, you're welcome. How about some dinner? Right? And that's just the end of it. A soft answer turns away wrath. If you want people to not like you and make people angry, by all means, go right ahead. But if you want good relationships, if you want the love and respect of people who are close to you, you'll restrain whatever your natural impulse is and answer softly, not just quietly, but the way the other person would like to be answered. Considerately. There's a lot more that could be said. Maybe we could do a part 3 if there's an interest, but we'll leave it there for now. Remember, our faults are like eyebrows. It's very easy to see them in other people and very difficult to see them in ourselves. Let's let our focus be on our own selves first. And if you are going to talk to someone else about faults, it ought to be, will you let me know if you see any in me? That ought to be our attitude as Christians. Let's not be overly critical of people that we think aren't measuring up. Oh, so-and-so is number 3 and number 7 and number 9. Let's not be overly critical of people that we think aren't measuring up. We don't know all of what they're going through or what they're coming from or what they're struggling with. Let's think of our own selves first and foremost. But if someone trusts you enough and respects your opinion enough to ask for feedback about their own faults, don't let them regret it. Be nice about it. Let your speech be with grace, seasoned with salt. You make it taste as good as you can, right? Let someone be glad that they asked for your assistance and not regret it. I think that's a much better place to be, and you might get a little bit more questions. You might be a lot more helpful if you do it that way as well. That's it. The lesson's yours. If there's anything that we can do to help you this evening as we wrap up, would you please let us know? Can we pray for you? Can we help you to obey the gospel? Can we help answer questions? Whether you come forward now or whether you want to ask us a question later, would you please determine to do that today, because tomorrow is not guaranteed to any of us. Right now, we're about to stand and sing a song to encourage you. Would you do that as we stand and sing?